We are going to bring in Jared Sandler because it's baseball time in Texas. He's going to be our baseball power hour. Jared, welcome to the program.
Thanks, guys. It's great to see you.
Yay!
I haven't been in studio in a little bit.
That's the spirit, especially around such a holy tongue.
That's right. Yeah, it's very fitting that you had me after your Germany trip a few weeks ago, months ago, whenever, a few hours before the start of Yom Kippur. We can all repent for our sins together.
I wanted to give you an opportunity to labor before Yom Kippur started. All right. So I think, and I know you have talked with G-Bag and Sean and RJ, and they talked with Brett Boone this morning, but is it fair to assume, I'm of the assumption that they might have a managerial search, but the managerial search is over and Skip Schumaker is your next manager?
So I guess I'd say this, and I'm not like, there's no winking, like I'm going to say one thing. I think we all believe that Skip Schumaker is the leading candidate by a long shot, but I don't know for sure, right? I don't know what he wants. I don't know, if this is what the front office ultimately will want. I think here's what I'd say about Skip Schumaker. He is very highly regarded. He is in a place of leverage because it's not like he needs to beg for a job. I mean, we talked about it. I'm sure you guys have discussed it. He opted out of a managerial job.
Yeah.
Like he turned down an option that was his for a third year with the Marlins. They wanted him
because they weren't up to his standard. So I think that, the Rangers will have conversations with Skip Schumaker and figure out, is this a fit? Is this a match? And, I think a lot of people like to try and connect dots. Skip Schumaker has a son who is starting his senior year of high school, or started, but he's committed to play baseball at TCU. How much does that play? I don't know, because when you're managing a major league team, it's not like maybe you can have lunch with his son a little more often, but it's a time commitment, right? So I think that what I'll say about Skip is he is so well thought of around the organization, and in his 1 year with the Rangers, he is very well thought of, and a lot of people are really impressed that when he was brought in, it was understood that he could be the next manager, and he understood the stigma there, and he wasn't around too much to cast a distracting shadow. And I think a lot of people really appreciated the way he went about his role and his relationship, understanding what the conversation was surrounding him.
What did he do?
It's a good question. I think, for lack of a better word, maybe consulted and or advised. That was his title. It's tough to know, but he was around and he got a lay of the land and obviously brought a perspective that was made up of experiences outside of this organization, both as a manager and then also as a player for the Cardinals. Listen, I don't like the Cardinals as much as the next Ranger fan, but the Cardinals have a great reputation of having, a way of doing things and teaching things, and maybe that's gotten away from them a little bit, but it certainly was alive when Skip was playing there.
Was it like a lot of conversation, consulting, maybe with Chris Young?
I think it was more front office level.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
I think so. That's not to say that Skip didn't have conversations with the coaching staff, but I think, his conversations were probably more directly with the baseball operations department.
That's beneficial to understand. He has that connection there.
Now, the next question, and what would happen, let's say if it was Schumacher, what would happen with Boone and Maddox? Am I wild to think they would do everything to keep Maddox and they would thank Boone for his service?
I think, so here's the unique thing with Skip. He was around for a year, so he got to kind of observe. I think there are people who maybe they realized it. Maybe they were smart enough to know that this was a possibility. Maybe they didn't. But, there probably were indirect job interviews, so to speak. Just from observation standpoint. I think with Mike Maddox, he lives in Fort Worth. He's maintained, that is his residence even when he wasn't working for the Rangers. So
it could kind of be a similar situation.
Well, yeah, and I think he's at a point where does he want to learn a new manager, right? He and Bochy got along so well. And what's interesting about that is Maddox wasn't Bochy's guy, right? I think Bochy, and I could be wrong, I think he would have loved for Dave Righetti to be the pitching coach. That was his guy. But
there was a mutual respect, and they ended up, I think, getting along, personally, but also professionally super well. Does he want to learn a new manager? Does he want to fit in with a new manager? I think that's a question in his career he'd have to ask. And then, for Brett Boone, what does he want, right? It wasn't like this was a part of his plans necessarily.
Yeah.
So what does he want? What does Skip want? And then for Skip, who does he want to bring in? I think for any manager, you need to have a say in this, right? So who are his guys, and who would he feel? Who does he believe in? I think it's too tough to know, because he had 2 years with the Marlins. So you can look at his Marlins staff and say, oh, maybe this guy, but who really knows?
Now, I know we all love Bruce Bochy, what he's done for the game of baseball, what he did specifically for the Texas Rangers. With that in mind, I hope this question makes sense. Does him no longer being the manager perhaps benefit the Rangers in terms of moving them forward a little quicker? Because it feels like they're going to go a decidedly different direction without Bochy than they would have otherwise. And that might just be my opinion, is I thought they would try to reload more or less kind of what they were doing.
You feel like what
shot.
They did, what too much of was the guys that won the World Series.
Yes, correct.
They were like, we'll give you every chance.
And I understand why he was loyal to those people. I really, really do. But I wonder if we were going to see kind of a redux of that in 2026, whereas now it feels like we're going to go in a maybe dramatically different direction. Is that perhaps better long-term for the team?
Well, I think just like in any sport, when we talk about roster building, especially let's say football, right? You got a 4-3 defense, maybe you got a 3-4. There's certain guys that fit better in this scheme or that scheme. I don't think it's any different for leadership. I think that there are certain, whether it's the manager, a coach, someone on the baseball ops side, not everyone can be everyone or be everything to everyone.
Sure.
And so I think, the front office basically, made the decision with Boch that maybe where he is in his career and his desires don't match up at this point with where the Rangers are and where they want to go. So I think that's definitely possible, Kevin. I think that's ultimately it was the burden of the front office to make that determination, because you don't just let a Hall of Fame bound manager go I try to make this clear with G-Bag and Sean and RJ. I've worked with 3 managers now. And whether you agree, whether it was on them or other people's fault, fair, unfair, right or wrong, the first 2, when they left, it was becoming a tougher situation to bear. That's not the case with Bruce Bochy. He was still beloved. It wasn't like he lost the clubhouse. It wasn't like, oh gosh, there's no way that this is tenable. That wasn't the case. So to make that decision, I think the front office had to come to the conclusion that you kind of inferred there.
So it wasn't unbearable. He saw the direction they wanted to go, and he didn't want to go in that direction, or also because they said mutually he didn't fit the direction they were ready to go in.
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. I can't. It would be unfair for me to say without being in those conversations. But
you could see how someone might infer that.
Sure. Yeah. I think. I know that Bruce Bochy had a desire to come back, but maybe it just wasn't the right situation after, discussing some of the details with Chris Young and whomever else was a part of those conversations.
Did he have the roster for success this year? That's frustrating. That's a frustrating question.
Here's what I'm going to say, and Jared might very much disagree with me.
Because I personally feel like Bruce Bochy's like, I don't care who you give me. I'm going to try and figure out how to win. And he probably was frustrated that he couldn't figure it out this year.
I think on the field they had a roster that could win, but perhaps in the clubhouse they did not.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk about the clubhouse, right?
Thanks a lot, Kevin Pillar.
I will argue it started before that just because of the different nature of, and I'm just going to use him as an example. This doesn't have to be good. This doesn't have to be bad. But fair to say that Marcus Semien and Corey Seager are vastly different people in terms of the way they might or might not interact with the rest of the team.
Well,
I think there are more similarities than what.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Both guys are intensely committed to their routine and what they feel like is best for them to do to get ready. And listen, I know Marcus's last couple of years haven't, been up to par, but he had a really impressive career, and what he had done was obviously a big part of that. I don't think anyone would argue that Corey Seager isn't ready to play, and he does for the time he's missed. Let's first of all, the appendectomy, like what's that? That's bad luck, right?
Yeah.
You take that away, he was going to play, a pretty decent amount. And I don't think people see, we always talk about, he missed 2 weeks. I don't think people realize all the work he put in to play through stuff, right? So their routines have both worked for them.
Individually,
but I think that here's what I would say. And there have been a lot of conversations about this, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Corey Seager is indisputably one of the best hitters in the world. I don't think that the question it should be, well, why is he not doing more of this or that in the clubhouse? Is you got 26 active players. That's 25. Let's separate position players and pitchers. You got 12 other position players who can check some of those boxes. Let Corey Seager be Corey Seager, which is one of the best hitters in the world and the best player on this team. It's about finding the right 13-player mix or 26-player mix. I don't think it needs to be put on one guy.
Kind of like with Luka, right? You're trying to find the team that fits with him. That makes sense.
I can
understand that.
And there's no doubt, guys. I'll say there's no doubt that the clubhouse mix, the clubhouse dynamic was not something that was super additive or positive towards getting the most out of this group.
Okay.
And this is
but it's tough to pin down, right? You can't look at it and say, well, he chases too much in the clubhouse, right? You can look at a guy's hitting so it's just tough to find that mix.
Is this, and this kind of stems off of Corey Seager, but this can be about any year of the clubhouses that you've seen. Is it tough, or do you think we've bypassed the era of like what Pilar talked about is let's all go to the movies and like do this or that together? Because fair to say that Corey Seager's not going to be the guy that's like, everyone come watch a movie at my place.
Well, it's interesting that people have come to that conclusion. I would tell you that
if you disagree, please.
Corey Seager's not the guy. Listen, Corey Seager loves his couch.
Yeah.
Okay. He loves hanging out on his couch. Those guys in that clubhouse, they love Corey Seager.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those guys, they flock to Corey Seager like as a friend, as a person. They know that he's got his own routine. And some guys might look at him and say, well, this is the best hitter on the team. Maybe I should try that. And maybe they do, and maybe they realize it is or isn't for them, right? The fantasy football stuff, like this, people might think it's silly, but like you got a long season.
Yeah.
And come July, fantasy football talk starts taking place. And then come August, you got drafts. And these guys are mock drafting like crazy.
Yeah.
And he is right. I mean, no one loves fantasy football maybe more than Corey Seager and then Patrick Corbin, right? So the days of guys going out and, I just watched the Cowboys documentary, The White House.
Yeah.
You got it. Like the pre-social media era is different. Now, do I think that it's beneficial? Team dinners and yeah, absolutely. That stuff can't be forced. You can't force people to do things. And I think that there are players in a clubhouse whose role, Austin Hedges. Like Austin Hedges is the greatest. We just came from Cleveland. Tom Hamilton, their radio guy, said Austin Hedges is the most valuable 150 hitter I've ever seen.
Hey, got a walk yesterday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He's on base, baby.
So, there are guys who they're connectors, and again, it goes back to not everyone can be everything, but you've got to check these boxes. And to me, you got one of the best hitters of the world, and listen, Aaron Judge, he's a unicorn. He does check all those boxes, right? But I don't think it should be a knock on Corey that it's not his personality to be a connector.
I bring up Barry Bonds a lot in that because Boch coached Barry Bonds also. A guy who he had two lockers. He had a recliner next to his locker. He was very individual. amazing hitter.
Yeah.
For reasons that we will not discuss right now. And also a great hitter before that as well. But I bring him up a lot, and somehow Bochy was able to navigate that and still have wins and success there. They didn't have the World Series with Bonds, but I bring him up in that conversation because there were other people there that were able to be the vibe. Like some people are this, and some people are there for vibes, and some people are there for that, and everybody needs to kind of know their role. And in 23, everybody did know their role.
Was Marcus Semien beloved in that clubhouse?
Yeah, I think there is that, like, where they differ. They're both the different personalities, right? But yeah, I think there's a ton of respect and admiration for what Marcus has achieved and what he stands for and who he is. And like, people see him, he's got a starting line. He's got 4 kids with a 5th on the way. And he like finds a way to balance being dad and being baseball player and like all those things.
Kiddos at Sandlot.
Yeah.
After they won the World Series, they had all of them up there on the.
Let me tell you something. You guys like cards and stuff, right?
Yeah.
If you can find a way to get baseball cards for his 2 oldest kids, maybe it could be worth some money one day. The youngest boy is a little too young. I mean, he probably gonna be a stud too. Marcus and his wife both were professional athletes, so that's good.
Look out. Yeah.
No, Marcus is absolutely. They both. That's the thing. I think there's been a lot made of this that wasn't made in 23. Why? Because the team was winning.
Yeah.
That is not the reason why the Rangers have come up short the last 2 years.
They couldn't hit the damn ball, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, maybe one of the other additions they made wasn't so great.